Howdy ho, Maplers, and welcome to Hero, our first post-Destiny character, our 41st 250 out of 49 classes in the game. I gotta say right out the gate, I'm pretty goddamn glad I didn't do Hero pre-Destiny. All that cooldown cycling hullabaloo is a thing of the past. This class has gone from 0 to Hero in my eyes. It is a lot smoother to play. Its mobbing rates still aren't the greatest. It's kind of held back by one skill specifically, but it's so much smoother now as a mobber. Like, the smoothness alone might be enough to bring the XP rates up for a lot of people. For the gear, it's all the same stuff I've been using across my 250s, just my Mesa obtained accessories and then some okay strength gear here and there. I am committing for these Explorer Warriors to using two-handed weapons and a secondary, since because of the Destiny changes and the attack speed changes, two-handed weapons plus a secondary are the best in slot for these characters. The only way you can make a one-handed sword and a shield better is by having a damn near perfect Terminus shield, which I'm pretty sure most of you guys probably don't. So, for the Explorer Warriors, two-handed weapons, and a shield, and a secondary rather. For Hero, you should ideally be using two-handed axe, since it gives you the most damage. But for fashion story purposes, because this just looks so goddamn good, I'm using a two-handed sword, because I like the anvil. For your inner ability, if you're using a two-handed sword, you still need that attack speed plus 1 inner. If you decide to go one-handed for the cosmetic reasons, or whatever reason you might have, 20% boss is your new best in slot line. For the V-Matrix, you know what's coming. We might be 10k Legion, but we're still not done. We're still not done putting decent holy symbol here in this first damn slot. It ain't gonna get better than this. EXP, drop rate, she does it all. And it's free. Oh boy, for Hero, it's kind of an awkward spot for me for Hero when it comes to mobbing. Your V skills don't really help you all that much, so I'd more recommend getting your boost nodes on your board quicker if you need the damage. And for your boost nodes, you really only have two trios. One important trio, one somewhat important trio. Your 6 skills you want to have boosted are Rising Rage, Raging Blow, Final Attack, Cry Valhalla, Beam Blade, and Puncture. Beam Blade is the replacement for your Tiger's Roar skill from pre-revamp, and Puncture is effectively the same thing, but it did get updated in Destiny. Puncture now no longer consumes combo orbs to cast, and its hitbox and animations have been changed. The hitbox is actually quite a bit taller than it used to be, so really what this is your secondary mobbing skill. You don't have to be a one-button wonder using Raging Blow all day every day. You now have the option to use Puncture instead. There are some trade-offs. Raging Blow's cast animation is quite a bit quicker, and it has a wider hitbox, whereas Puncture is a little bit slower, but it has a much taller hitbox. So, whichever map you end up needing, if you need a little bit more height, you use Puncture. If you need a little bit more speed to get your rotation faster, you probably want to use Raging Blow. For like 90% of maps though, I tended to use Puncture. Because I really don't like the one-button wonder types of classes. I like a little bit of diversity in my life, so I used Puncture as my mobbing skill and saved Raging Blow for just my bossing skill. And it works out fine. Puncture is amazing. It also comes baseline with 50% bonus damage to normal monsters, so even without this thing boosted really high right out the gates, Puncture is a very solid mobbing tool. And then for Heroes V skills. There's really no amazing place to start for these. You want them all for bossing, and you don't really want that many of them for mobbing. But right out the gate, I'd say like the most useful one for mobbing is probably Sword Illusion. It's like a temporary summon, so to speak, which will clear a couple of waves of spawn, usually around 2 or 3 on Frenzied Spawn when you throw it out. It's pretty handy for using it to cover one specific part of the map while you're going around for like a loot rotation or something. It's not the most handy for mobbing. A lot of times you're just going to be using it to use it for some spice of life, but it's definitely there and it'll help you out. This also pumps out a lot of damage and can also be used to charge up your combo orbs really fucking fast. So it's nice for that if you ever accidentally turn off your combo orbs, because I did that a lot. The consequences of having my combo orbs toggle right next to my enrage toggle definitely lent me to using this a lot to build up combo. And then, of course, the big damage, instinctual combo. Also, unfortunately, the big cooldown, a 4-minute cooldown burst skill, and goddamn does it burst. Hero is the lowest statted character I've ever soloed Infernal Wolf on. She's absolutely ridiculous. Like 19.8k strength with attack speed 0, you can solo the Infernal Wolf on this class. It's fucking dumb. This skill dump trucks so many damage lines, it's ridiculous. Not even just that, it increases your damages to boss and your attack power by 12.5%. It's so goddamn good as a burst ability, but it feels really, really bad because it's a 4-minute cooldown. Like, honestly, I hope in the future they realize, hey, these 4-minute cooldown classes just feel really awkward to boss with, especially in party bossing situations. Your burst never lines up with your team. So maybe hit the damage just a bit and get this cooldown down to 3 minutes. Honestly, it would feel perfect. As it is now, big damage and big consequences. It's such a good skill. I just wish it was a 3-minute cooldown so it would be more useful. And then, of course, the anime cutscene skill, World Reaver, your 20-second cooldown iframe, and a massive final damage boost. Yeah, this skill is amazing. The amount of range inflation Hero can get just by stacking up all their final damage sources, instinctual combo, World Reaver, your combo orbs, enrage, throw on weapon aura. The amount of final damage and range inflation of this class is brutal. Every time I would be bursting Infernal Wolf after I tossed out World Reaver, my range was pushing well over 50 mil. It's ridiculous. This skill is really good for short, instant bursts, so usually pairing this together with Sword Illusion leads to good damage output. And of course, it's a 20-second cooldown iframe. The only drawback being this thing requires you to use skill transparency, unless you really get used to playing in the dark. Because it cutting the screen and then fracturing it apart, it completely obscures your vision of what's actually going on behind the animation. It's pretty dumb. And then my least favorite skill, the skill that could be the best, but just fucking ain't, Burning Soul Blade. This skill could be so good for a mobbing tool if it didn't have such serious attachment issues. This thing, you cannot get more than half a screen away from this thing before it scampers right back to you, afraid of being left behind. In the one map where I was able to use this thing efficiently in PD1, this was great. It's a really nice summon, but god, it should be so much better than this. It's pathetically bad as a mobbing skill, because its stationary effect is where most of its power is as a mobbing tool, and it's just so bad. Oh, I hate this skill, dude. It could be so good, but it just isn't because of that leash range. Not even on my resolution. I use 4x3 resolution still, if you've ever seen me stream. Not even on my resolution, this dinky 4x3 resolution, can I get more than a screen away from this thing. Oy vey. As a bossing tool, it's pretty nice. It's just additional damage. It attacks every few seconds while you're dealing damage, so on top of all your other burst, it's even more burst. It's also a 120-second cooldown, so you're using this twice in between your instinctual combo. Effectively, this is your off-burst damage. It's pretty nice. Not the best in the universe, but pretty nice. And then, of course, your decent skills. Decent combat orders and decent sharp eyes. You also got decent speed infusion down here. This one. I always get confused by the new Urda Nova and decent speed infusion icons. You only really use this if you're using green pot for attack speed 0, so these are the primary two. Decent sharp eyes, crit rate, crit damage. Who doesn't want that? Decent combat orders, final damage. Who doesn't want that? Hero can never have enough of that. And of course, who wants more final damage? Throw on some weapon aura too, it's fantastic. You don't really need weapon aura for much on Heroes mobbing, especially since they buffed Puncture and Raging Blow in the Destiny update. Your mobbing tools available to you are already good enough that you're more often than not just going to be KSing weapon aura with any of the mobs it would kill. So mostly you just throw this on for its bossing benefit. And of course, True Arachnid's Reflection. You get it for completing the Will storyline, decent mobbing, decent bossing. You might as well throw it on as soon as you get it because being a warrior, your Lucid Soul damage is kinda bad. And character building 1. Hero's a class that likes to flash jump through mobs while it does its mobbing rotation, so you're going to be triggering this the most. And it's just the best EXP booster for the specialty nodes, as far as Frenzied Spawn is concerned. And I just threw Blink on as my last slot for that 10 attack. Really, there aren't many options here for a hero. It's like I could throw on more burst, I could throw on a shield or super stance that I don't need, a shield that I don't need with mobbing that I don't need. I could throw an Urna's Shower, which could be useful in a few situations, but not overly useful, you know. The V-Matrix kind of fills up fast for hero. This class is still very simple. And for the mobbing, it's very simple as well. Always make sure you've got your combo orbs toggled on. Don't start training for 4 hours without them, like me. And for 200 to 205, you know, keeping it simple, like heroes want to do. You've got either Eastern Cave Path 2 or Below the Cave. Especially now that Puncture is an alternate mobbing skill. Having that extra height to Puncture effectively means you can hit every single platform. And the animation speed for Puncture isn't even that slow. You'd get used to it really fast. It took me less than an hour to start getting my feel for this. It's really smooth once you get it. It hits quite a few mobs. The hitbox is a little bit wonky. It works a little bit like Xenon's Bombardment if you've played through Xenon, where the attack starts behind your character and then moves forward, so it is a slight diagonal, but the hitbox is more than big enough. You're gonna be cleaving through mobs constantly. Not to mention that bonus damage to normal monsters stacking on top of your hyper normal monster damage, your Legion Grid normal monster damage. This skill is going to be doing quite a bit of normal monster damage. You shouldn't really be struggling to kill mobs up through here. And these areas will carry you on into 205 real fast and get you on to actually good areas. Vanishing Journey is just a stepping stone to the good maps. 205, once you get into Reverse City, is where the good maps start. And for Reverse City, if you're really funded, Hidden Research Train. Like, if your Lucid Soul is one shot and plop your butt down here, this is the best map for you. It's got the most spawn, and it's the other hidden map. So it gives the best EXP per mob. But if you don't have a one-shotting Lucid Soul, and you're not super duper funded, like me, Hidden Underground Train. Once again, Puncture's hitbox is fantastic. You're going to hit literally every platform in this map. So you don't even need to worry about a Lucid Soul. Lucid, who's that? All you gotta do, flash jump left and right. It doesn't get much more simple than this. If you want to quicken up the rotation, just throw your Sword Illusion to the side instead of going over there yourself. It helps. You can also use your Rising Rage on the side instead of going over there yourself. However, I'm not a huge fan of Rising Rage. For whatever reason, it still has quite a long cast animation to it, so you do get locked in place. It doesn't feel the most smooth while mobbing, even though it has a nice low cooldown that would make it feel good for mobbing. It also has to be fully grounded to cast. If you could cast Rising Rage in the air, honestly, I think that would probably be the only buff it really needs to be more useful. You can also throw an Aura Blade up there if you want to. Just, you know, spice things up. And that'll get you on to 215 really fast. These areas are great for Hero early on because she's able to hit literally every platform thanks to the Puncture update. The hitbox is so tall you're never going to be struggling to kill mobs in the map. Gone are the days of cycling cooldowns to have a main mobbing skill. Now you have even better mobbing skills on 100% uptime. The future's bright for Hero. And of course, at 215 until 220, you're on into Yum Yum Island. It's gonna be the Hidden Iliad Field. And guess what's gonna happen here? If you guessed triple platting with Puncture, you would be correct. You can also hit the very far right platform, the highest part of the map for mobs to spawn. Puncture also gets up there. This skill is tall as all hell. The only problem here is the amount of mobs that spawn on Frenzied Spawn are a bit higher than Puncture can handle. So this is kind of where you want to start throwing in your Sword Illusion to take a section of the map. Since if you cast Sword Illusion at the top of your flash jump, it's going to hit all three platforms just like you. As far as mobbing goes, I don't really recommend using World Reaver because of its long animation. It kind of locks you in place for too long for it to be efficient. You can also bust out Sword Illusion here and plop it down in the middle. Just make sure, again, don't get too far from it or it'll leash back to you like a little baby. It'll just leash back to you. But you can always just plop it down in the middle if you ever have to take a bathroom break or something. Sword Illusion will keep killing for you the entire time you're gone. It's a nice AFK button, if nothing else, for these lower levels. And this map will carry you on into 220 super duper fast. Like honestly, for these lower levels, Hero did not slow down, and a lot of the horror stories I used to hear about Hero pre-Destiny were these early levels, the growing pains for learning to cooldown cycle and all that. So I'm happy to say the Destiny update definitely did wonders in alleviating that problem. And for 220 until 230, or until 225 if you like Arcana better, you've got Lashland, you've got Rev Place 3. Here would be another map where if Sword Illusion wasn't garbage, Hero's rates could be insane. If you have it, Lucid Soul on the house. If they ever buff it in the future, Sword Illusion on the house. Or not Sword Illusion, Burning Soulblade on the house. If Burning Soulblade could hold the house, and the hitbox is tall enough to hold the house, and you were left to just clear this right side, Hero could be pumping out some serious numbers in these early levels. This map is still really good, even without Burning Soulblade. I think my Lucid Soul is about 2-shotting currently. Yeah, she's 2-shotting. So the rates are still pretty darn good, just you want to make sure you're throwing your Sword Illusion over there on cooldown. You can use your Rising Rage over there as well. You can throw an Aura Blade to make sure that top corner of the house is cleared, because if mobs clump up there, it takes away spawn from the rest of the map. But generally, you just flash jump left and right using Puncture. Here again, I would probably recommend using Puncture since Raging Blow's hitbox is just barely too short for this top right platform, which is the tallest platform in the map, and it holds quite a bit of the spawn here, so it's a bit unfortunate. This one does require you to use Raging Blow, or use Puncture instead of Raging Blow. And that'll honestly carry you on to 230 if you want to, or if you want to change your pace, 225. And then from there, you want to move over to Arcana, into the Earth Spirits until 236. This map, once again, benefits really heavily from the Destiny update to Puncture. This new hitbox is honestly amazing because it means there are literally only 2 mobs in this map, or 3 after Frenzied Spawn is applied, that you cannot reach just flash jumping along the bottom. Like, this doesn't get any simpler. You literally just flash jump left and right using Puncture. You can also use Raging Blow here as well, although you have to have a little more precise of a flash jump to hit those top middle platforms. Either one works here. Raging Blow might honestly be a little better if you get used to getting the tall flash jump to hit those middle ones, just because of its faster cast animation, but it's really up to you. Again, I primarily just used Puncture as my main mobbing skill and left Raging Blow specifically for bossing, because I like a little variety. But both of them work for this level range, and honestly, Earth Spirits are solid as heck as a map, especially since they were buffed. That map is pretty gosh darn good, and it'll carry you on into 236 really, really easy. And then at 236, you really have 2 options. You've got either Lower Path 1, or the Deepest Upper Path. Both are really good, both effectively use the same thing. However, Deepest Upper Path is a little bit more tenuous on Frenzied Spawn. This is more so a map I'd recommend for wild totem spawn speeds. On Frenzied Spawn, it takes you a little bit too long to cross the map before stuff starts respawning behind you. And unless you have a soul to cover those areas behind you when you're not there, it ends up being a little bit worse than Lower Path 1. So my recommendation would be LP1. And this map feels great. This is another map where you can use either Raging Blow or Puncture. Both of them can double plat. Ever since the Destiny update giving you 100% uptime on Empowered Raging Blow, as well as the update to its hitbox, Raging Blow is way more versatile than it used to be. It doesn't require nearly as specific a flash jump to hit this top platform, it feels nice and smooth. This is definitely another area that would benefit heavily from Burning Soulblade not being trash. However, it is sort of okay with Burning Soulblade. You just have to very precisely put it in the center of the map, which seems counterintuitive since it's going to be kill stealing you as you move through it, but it ends up being just ever so slightly higher EXP rates, setting it there in the middle. And dude, Burning Soulblade could be so good. Heroes EXP rate, Heroes mobbing rates could be so good if you could place this thing any farther from yourself in these maps, but as it is, Heroes base rates now are very, very close to the average for all classes. Burning Soulblade also works as keeping your mob kill count going while you're looting the map, so it's kinda handy for that. Hero is definitely a far cry from its old farming rates. It's no longer the big booty farmer of the warrior branch. It's actually very average, if not even a little bit above average in some specific areas. The Destiny update did a big wonder for its mobbing. And LP1 or Deepest Upper Path will carry you on into either 250 if you're not strong enough for Celis, or into 244, which is the level I'd recommend you move to Celis. Because at 244, you're well out of the bonus EXP range for the LP1 or the Deepest Upper maps for their bonus EXP, and you're getting closer to the bonus EXP range for the mobs in Celis. And of course, it's gotta be Plunging Depths 1. This is pretty much the only area where I found a decent enough rotation for Burning Soulblade to not just be the biggest turd to ever exist. For your summons, if you have them, Lucid Soul on one side, Will Skill on the other. It doesn't really matter which side you put them on. Will is really the only one that's going to be killing stuff. Lucid Soul is kind of just there to drag mobs to you and towards the center platform, because on the center platform, you can set Burning Soulblade, and that'll clear the top for you. Ideally, you want to set it around here, where this lowest plank of wood is. That's about the center of the map, so you can flash jump left and right along the bottom, and you'll never quite get far enough away unless you touch the very corners of the map, so that Burning Soulblade won't just leash back to you. It'll always stay where it needs to be, killing the mobs at the top of the map. And this was pretty much Hero's peak as far as kill rate goes, pushing just about 25k mobs per hour on Frenzied Spawn. It's not as good as it could be, but as long as Burning Soulblade is as bad as it currently is, this is about as good as it's gonna get. You also have the options closer to level 250 if you're strong enough, or if you just want to get out of Celis. You can also go to VC3. You can triple plat there, if you'd believe it. Puncture has a tall enough hitbox in VC3 to triple plat. The only downside being that map is so omega long that on Frenzied Spawn, your kill rate's just outright gonna be better in Celis, because it takes you so long to flash jump across VC3. But if you're on Wild Totem, or if you're at like 253 for the bonus EXP range, VC3 would be a solid option as an alternative. And that's pretty much Heroes mobbing. It's very simple. Very simple. It's kind of Heroes bread and butter. Be simple, be cool. Hero things. Its mobbing is not that hard to grasp. It's no more cooldown cycling. You'll love to see that. It's very basic. It looks really pretty, especially after the animation updates. It does have a bit of like icon issues with Beamblade looking very similar to Flashblade. Oh, I haven't even touched on Flashblade yet. Oh my god, boys. Flashblade. A gift from God. Flashblade is probably the single best feeling ability in the game for Hero. Like, this skill alone makes me look at Dark Knight and Paladin as second-class citizens as far as the Explorer Warriors go. This skill is mobility to a T. It feels so good. It is effectively a mob targeting dash, which you can direct with your arrow keys. The only problem this thing has is if there's no mob, or if you're ever so slightly out of range, nothing happens. But that's a good thing, honestly, because it does have a cooldown, which means you're not going to waste it for literally nothing. This skill makes Spirit Savior as a hero a complete joke. Like, 10k? Yeah, forget about it. You'll have a minute and a half left in Spirit Savior after you get 10k with this thing. It's so god darn good. For bossing, it is so god darn good. A boss teleports away from you in Dojo, forget that, teleport to his ass and keep beating him up. This skill is so good. Not to mention, also, leap attack in your first job. Forget like a boss like Lotus or Varishilla that knocks you back. Nope, slam yourself back into the ground with leap attack, and then boom, Flashblade back to the boss. There's so much utility built into that skill as just movement incarnate. It feels good. Its damage is pathetic, but it's not there for damage. It's there to look cool and to dash your ass across the map. And it does exactly that. I love it. Beamblade is, or Flashblade, sorry, is so goddamn good. Oh boy. For the bossing, now that we started talking about it, I guess. Yeah, as I said at the start, 4-minute cooldown bursts. It's not ideal. It does a lot of damage. That's what 4-minute burst is for, right? Night Lord and Hero holding the torch together. Biggest burst in the game. Biggest suffering because of their burst in the game. But I mean, as it is, you get what you get. You have off burst with Burning Soul Blade, you've got Sword Illusion, you've got World Reaver for like mini chip damage levels of burst, but the real damage is on Instinctual Combo, we all know it. The hero's gonna be sort of a wet noodle without it. But I don't see him changing it anytime soon unless people really get upset about it in KMS, which they sort of are, but at this point they're more in the upset, let's make memes about it sort of upset. They're not in the upset like, let's put a riot truck out in front of their headquarters. So I don't think it'll get changed all that soon. But Hero does a lot of damage. As far as like a bossing mule goes, if you just want to be able to bind and burst your bosses and get them out of the way as quick as possible every week, you really can't go wrong with Hero. If you don't mind waiting for the 4-minute cooldown in between the bosses, it doesn't get much easier than this. With all its mobility, with its... Oh, speaking of mobility, Hero's Rush is the fastest in the game for the Explorer Warriors. Go like use a rush skill on a Dark Knight and then come back to Hero. It's, oh my god, it's night and day. Remember how I called them second-class citizens? It literally is. Hero has every mobility tool the other Explorer Warriors desperately need. Oh boy. For the bossing, of course, you've got Weapon Aura for bonus damage. You've got Blitz Shield to be able to tank things. This is a dash, not a blink, so you can't use it to get through Lotus Laser, but you can if you turn on Blitz Shield. Use your noodle there. Of course, 20-second cooldown iframe feels incredible for bossing, as well as this thing giving you a final damage boost on top of it. It's a literal win-win situation. There's very few times in like lower difficulty bosses where you're not just going to be using this thing on cooldown with your Sword Illusion for just like extra chips of burst in between your major burst. Beamblade is a really nice skill, although it's hard to fit it into rotations for Frenzied Spawn. The replacement for your Shout ability being Beamblade, it is an omnidirectional, like, slash attack, sort of like a Getsuga Tensha if you've ever watched Bleach. Its range is really good, and since it's omnidirectional, you can fit it into rotations for larger maps where you have like one specific corner of the map that you need to clear without actually going there. A nice map that I had for doing dailies on it was like Occupied Dance Floor. Throwing out Beamblade to the right instead of going over to the top right to clear that side of the map feels really nice on a slower spawn speed rotation. It's just, since Frenzied Spawn respawns so quickly, there are very little times where fitting this into the rotation is necessary or beneficial. I mentioned it earlier, I believe, but combo orbs did get changed so that none of your skills, not World Reaver, not Puncture, not Beamblade, literally nothing, takes your combo orbs. And honestly, as a quality of life change more than anything, it's fantastic, dude. Being guaranteed that your damage isn't going to be fluctuating up and down just because you're using your abilities feels great. It also means, as long as you don't accidentally turn this off, Raging Blow is always empowered, which is probably the biggest change for Hero, right up there next to Puncture being a secondary mobbing skill, because Unempowered Raging Blow pre-Destiny was the biggest piece of shit this class had. No amount of copium could make that skill good. Like, it was bad, bad, bad. To the point where you had to cycle all your cooldowns, to the point you actually needed Burning Soulblade on your keys just to get the Empowered Raging Blowback. It was big booty. So just having it now 100% of the time passively, it feels really good. And honestly, if Hero feels this much better after Destiny, I'm very excited for Paladin now, because Paladin pre-Destiny didn't even feel that bad. So, if they made it better, which I assume they did, Paladin's gonna be a cakewalk, dude. Paladin mobbing was already good. Unfortunately for Dark Knight, they didn't really focus on Dark Knight's mobbing when it came to Destiny. Instead of making Dark Knight a better mobber, they just decided what would happen if we made Dark Knight unkillable. And they did! Dark Knight is probably the most beginner-friendly class in the game currently. It bosses so easily with Reincarnation, or I guess it's Final Pact for us in GMS, with Final Pact having a cooldown selector effectively. You're gonna time out of bosses before you die out of bosses on Dark Knight. So they leaned in real heavy to Dark Knight's bossing and then just abandoned its mobbing. It's still pretty bad. I leveled up Dark Knight to 220 as my Terror Burning character in Bara for this event, for the Maple Points, and yeah, it's a big disappointment still in the mobbing category. It just has no capability of keeping up with Frenzied Spawn whatsoever. Slower spawn speeds, base spawn, Dark Knight's mobbing is fine, if a bit bad, but it's nowhere near as tragically terrible as it is in GMS because of spawn boosters. But we're getting off on a tangent. Dude, Hero. I don't know if Hero would be a class I'd want to main, but Hero is definitely a class I could see myself choosing as like a bossing mule. If for nothing else than for Flashblade. This skill is so fucking fun to use. It's so good for the mobility department. It feels great. It even feels good while you're mobbing too. Using this to get to the top of the map from the bottom of the map in PD1 just to do loot cycles, it felt really good, especially in conjunction with the up jump. You have so much reach in your mobility between Flashblade and your upward charge. Hero's great. Honestly, post-Destiny, Hero's pretty good. As far as mobbing goes, it's about average with the rest of the classes in the game. It's not going to set any battle analysis records for kills per hour, it's not going to set any EXP records, but it's way better than it was. It's like, Hero, if nothing else, is just Hero Prime post-Destiny. It does everything it did pre-Destiny, just better and flashier. And that's about the best way you can put it. Hero's a very simple class. It's very, very pretty after the update. I like the animations a lot, but I don't really see myself maining this class. Mostly because of the 4-minute burst cooldown, but hey. That has been Hero. If you have any questions about my journey for getting all the classes in the game to 250, about playing Hero, about any of the other explorers post-Destiny, or, you know, just about playing MapleStory in general, feel free to ask down in the comments. I make it a point to answer any and all questions you guys might have, other than the ones I've answered a billion million times before. Also, if you guys want to know, my main will more than likely be Nightwalker. They finally removed the necessity of sticky keys in the Ignition update, so hey, woo! Blow some party favors. I can finally reveal the main. But this has been Hero. For the next 250, I'm thinking of something a little more funky. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. It's been a little while since the last one, but I'm already 10k Legion. Where's the rush in getting these 250s, right? Might as well do some fun side projects. But I'll see you in the next video.